them.
I know, very cool. On that note, please welcome Anila, and she's going to have the panel introduce themselves. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Center for Newcomers. I'm sure you've had many of our staff members here and our volunteers here welcome you, but I always love to see new people come and feel at home at our center. We worked many years to get to this building, and we're still building it out. And so you're always welcome to come to experience any of our programs, to offer your own services here. We'd love to see you and really have this as a community support place. So I'm actually not going to go into all of our esteemed panelists' biographies, because the first question that I'd really like to ask is, we've been listening to so many of our audience members today, and they've been talking about some people have started right from the get-go in oil and gas and even in field services, and other people are wanting to transition in or have transitioned in. Many people are from other parts of the world, right? So what I'd like to ask each one of you is really to, take us through your journey, right? Like, did you actually thought that you would be in the role that you're in right now? With actually, like, the 12-year-old you say, this is what I'm going to do for a living?
Absolutely.
So how did you start off, and where did that go?
So look, apologies, me first. I think I started off as a young 17-year-old. It's coming up to 40 years in the industry now. It's been a journey, it's been fun. I wasn't, I obviously can tell I grew up in India. I colleged in India. I went to work for a rig contractor as an intern. Got picked up as an intern to work for them. Went to Singapore, built rigs for them. And I thought, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. You build a big service submersible, you move on. In '86, so I joined that company in '83. In '86, I saw the first oil and gas slump. We've been seeing this volatility in the industry quite a lot. But if I didn't have skills from building rigs, when you work on a rig, I wouldn't be where I am today. I could have given up that job, gone home, and looked for something else. So I think, one of the key things that I learned from that first slump in '86 was, hey, you grow up, you learn to do something different, you don't feel shy, you get on the rig, you get your hands dirty, you work in the field for a bit. So I did that for a few many years. I worked 13 years with that company as a rig contractor for deepwater drilling. After which I kind of wanted to move into the services sector. So I left them to join a company called Schlumberger. I worked for Schlumberger for 24 years. Happily decided to retire in 2019. Went home for 3 months and was bored as heck. And I thought to myself, well, this is not working. And then, contacts in the industry always pull you back in. And I can only tell you this, is leverage and as many contacts as you make today, as you make in the industry, out of the industry. So friends called out, hey, we've got this job going, do you want to work in it? And I thought to myself, this is automation, this is robotics. I had never done this, but there was no short way out of this. I decided to upskill myself. I don't consider myself an expert in robotics or automation, but you learn to code, you learn to upskill, you learn to write different languages in computer, which is what I did. And today I work as the Vice President for Precision Drilling for the technology sector. We have a group of 45 plus people catering to our 220 odd rigs, where we actually have put automation on very successfully for the last 3 years, generating good amounts of revenue from it. The industry needs the change, and so the team that I have now is then diversified into the ESG space. I see we've got people from the ESG sector here. And so we are actually now forming a division. We have formed a division where we now have ESG. So I take care of the entire technology and ESG automation within precision drilling today, right? If that makes any sense to my career.
Absolutely. And Jana, this 12-year-old you always knowing that you're going to be an account executive?
No, definitely not. I do not have the right experience that you do. I've been in oil and gas basically my entire career. For the last 11 years, I've been working for Baker Hughes, which you don't know is an oil field services company, essentially helping producers right from the drilling side to the fuel that you put in your car. I'm from a small town in BC, and in BC, sometimes oil and gas can be a bit of a dirty word, so I didn't know really anything about the oil and gas industry until I moved to Fort McMurray. I graduated with a degree in chemistry from UBC, and again, it wasn't really talked about that this is an industry that you can go into. And for me, I guess it was really just like being in the right spot at the right time, and I was in Fort McMurray and had that opportunity to be there. And if you guys don't know about Fort McMurray, really, we're a major hub of oil and gases, and there's a lot of opportunities up there. And I started an entry-level job in operations, and I was out there with my hard hat on and my coveralls and steel-toe boots. And I guess for me, just to your point, networking really is like so important, and those people that you meet are so important. And just being interested, being open to learning and new opportunities, and there might be some sacrifices you have to make along the way to have a good, successful career, but there are a lot of opportunities, and that's kind of how I got to where I was today. I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn about different product lines, different types of how production happens, and that ultimately led me to my job in Calgary right now.
Great, thank you. And Susie, I know that the audiences have gotten to know you the best thus far.
And they're still here.
See, wonderful. So tell us a little bit about, what did you think you were going to do when you were 12?
So when I was 12, I thought I would be flying helicopters, or I was going to be a heavy-duty mechanic. And I didn't follow that path. I don't know if you can tell. I'm in HR now. I actually grew up in a small town in BC as well. We'll talk about that after.
Yes.
And I moved to Calgary after I graduated from high school. I went to SAIT, which is a great school, great institution here in Calgary. There's also an AIT in Edmonton. And got my chemical technology diploma. It was a 2-year program, and I wanted to work in a lab with beakers and do chemistry stuff. I got a job in a facility in 1991, which I didn't expect. I didn't know anything about the oil patch. I didn't know what a pump jack was. I remember driving on the highway looking at a pump jack, being amazed that it wasn't on TV. And I walked into this facility, and I mentioned to everybody before that I was one of the few females working with a bunch of men. And the smell of that facility, and my boss looked at me on my first day and he said, "Do you smell that?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That's the smell of money." So, okay. I learned a lot at that time. Back then, I didn't get steel-toe boots. I did get coveralls. I did get safety glasses. I worked in a very safety-sensitive position. I worked in high temperature, high pressure, different experiments that we were doing. And I was exposed to H2S, which is a sour gas. So it was interesting, back then. There was a little bit of they used to call it a cowboy attitude, and things have really evolved since then. After a few years of working in the lab, I went into account management, so I went to be a technical salesperson, and I worked with a lot of the companies that are producers today. And sort of develop my network. So I did that for about 5 or 6 years, and then I stayed at home with 2 of my kids. Stayed at home for about 5 years, and then I relaunched. I like to say it's a relaunch back into the workforce, doing sales, and then my path led me into recruitment. So I started to work for a firm here in Calgary that basically worked with engineers, geologists, geophysicists, and recruited them for different organizations. So we were called a headhunter back in those days. I then ended up working for Schlumberger, and worked for Schlumberger for a number of years, expanded my career path into more of an HR generalist focus. Left Schlumberger, worked for a couple other companies, and now again working with Sanjel Energy Services. So I'm sure that a few folks that Jenna and Ash know that we can have some stories. In fact, our CHRO, she's a good friend of mine, and I'm sure Ash, like I said, if we could talk stories, especially with precision. So it is, it's very much about who you know, the network that you develop, because every opportunity that I've had, I got the phone call. So when I was relaunching myself back into the oil patch, it was a phone call. When I went in to be a headhunter, it was a phone call. When I went to work for Schlumberger, it was a phone call, right? So opportunities with Sandgel, again, it was who I knew and who knew me. So build bridges, right? And that's kind of how I got to here instead of flying a helicopter. I think that would have been more fun, but HR's been quite a treat as well. So.
I agree with you because I wanted to be Paula Abdul, but I'm sitting here. So, you do what you can. That's right. What the opportunities that arise for you. So, I know that, some of you alluded to this in terms of just talking about the oil and gas sector and how, depending on where you're coming from and where you are, like I was born and raised in Calgary. And my family immigrated from India because of the oil and gas sector, right? My uncle came to live here and actually chose Calgary because of the polo grounds out of all the other places. So there's all kinds of interesting reasons why people come. And traditionally, people have arrived in Alberta, to work in the oil patch. But we know that as attitude shifts and, people are in BC and don't like us, and all kinds of things are happening. Like, what are, to all three of you, like, what attracted you and what keeps you in energy services? Like, what drives you to want to still stay here, even though there are perceived challenges?
I'll start with I think it's how much the industry has evolved for me. And like I mentioned in the last panel discussion, the diversity, the inclusion, and how we've transformed from being this very male-dominated industry to being very open, and opportunity is the key, and the security associated with it. I've been able to make a living and provide for my family, and enjoy the different things that I like to do in my personal time. And I always say, thank you, Sandgel, right? Like it's the career that I've been able to be successful at is because of the oil and energy sector. And again, the technology, and I'm sure both of you can attest to this, right? I remember the first time I ever saw an MRI machine was when we were doing analysis at the University of Calgary for oil and gas, right? Like the technology that they're using is applied in so many different avenues, and we're on the cusp of that, right? We're always on the forefront of that, right? So it's for my children, for myself, for those my friends and family that are looking and hopefully having a career. It's endless. There's so much opportunity and so much diversity where you can take your career, and I'm proud to say that I'm an example of that. So.
Yeah, for me, it's really the people, and I'm not just saying this because my HR reps over there. I love going to work every day. The team that we work with is fantastic, and so are my customers. And I mean, this is the only example I have because I've only worked in the oil and gas industry, but I've met very few people who are not willing to share information with you, share their experiences, share their knowledge, and be open having a discussion with you. Like, I can just imagine in other industries, if you're entry level and there's a VP, they don't want to talk to you. But there's not that barrier in oil and gas from what I've experienced. And I also really like that it's fast paced, it's evolving very quickly, and I like being in that sort of environment. It makes me, I don't know, it motivates me, I guess, energizes me. And this is maybe not as relevant to my particular role any longer, but I think it's really important. And I think the safety standards in oil and gas are quite a bit higher than perhaps other industries. And when I worked in the field, I really truly felt that my coworkers and the people that I was working with, they cared about me going home safe at the end of the day. And I don't know that I can say that for every industry. Really, it's gone to a culture. If you don't report something that's unsafe, you're going to be the one that's going to be penalized for it. So I think that is important for people to know that safety is front of mind, and it's not just, did you get hurt when you came home, or was it like an impact to your mental health? It just goes beyond what you might think of like traditional safety aspects, and that's evolving too.
That's actually probably something a lot of us didn't know. So thank you for that. Okay.
So like I said, I think the only dull moment that I had in my entire career was the 3 months off that I took when I retired. The oil and gas is super diverse in terms of the jobs you do. I heard somebody who said she's from wireline. Look, there is no shortage of the number of jobs you can do by just upskilling. We pick up engineers, we pick up technicians, We've had technicians grow into people, into positions where they manage people. And so I never got bored of this. You know, you work in the field, you grow into coming out of the field, you get into management, and then you realize this is not for me, you go back in the field. And that's how diverse the oil industry is. It allows you to pick and choose, given how much work you want to do. It's left up to you guys. You want to put out, you put out. Your reward, it comes in the form of what you want to achieve at the end of it all. And, you know, if you ask me, and we asked the question earlier, did I think I was going to be here 40 years later in this position trying to do robotics on a rig? Absolutely not. But it's the inclusion, the diversity, the safety, the things you can do, the expansion of what we are doing in the oil and gas industry with the ESG space is what keeps me going. I mean, there is no question that if I was going to do the same thing I did 20 years ago, I'd be bored by now. And that retirement of 3 months that I took would have been super lucrative. But I think, you know, the message that I want to give you from this is, and you know, I think Kim hit this on the head in the last panel, oil and gas is here to stay. You know, there is no question that we have to adhere to climate and conditions, but we're not ready yet. We're in the middle of this disruption where another 5 or 10 years will dictate where we are. So the oil and gas industry is here. Find your mojo, find the place you want to be in, find where you want to fit yourself in, upscale, do what I did, just enjoy every job you do within the oil and gas industry. I've had friends who've left, who have joined different fields, who became pilots, who are struggling at the moment because they aren't getting paid enough, want to come back to the oil industry. I've got friends within the oil industry who are needing to get out. I think the message here is, if you enjoy what you do in oil and gas, stick with it. But to enjoy what you do in oil and gas, you need to find that little niche of what you want to do, right? Is what I'd say to you guys. So that's where I am.
Well, and you know, and I think what we are really saying is that within oil and gas, you know, we often hear these kind of like doomsday kind of, you know, like, oh, this is going to end. But clearly, what's kept the three of you wanting to stay here is that there's always an evolution happening. There's always changes. Everything is getting even safer. There's more innovation. There's different ways of doing things. And so what I'm hearing from all of you is that oil and gas, like you said, is here to stay, and that, you know, but what it's going to be like 20 years from now or 40 years from now, who knows, right? And I think that that's really the exciting piece to speak to that. So let's talk about the opposite of that, right? What are some of the challenges that you've faced in your career, or the challenges that you know are there currently? You know, what are some of the things that, you know, anyone that's looking to get into the sector should be aware of in terms of being able to navigate?
Go.
Sure.
So I think, you know, one of the biggest challenges for me was downturns. You know, the downturn cycles were getting shorter and shorter over the period of my 40 years. And what I came to realize is, you know, when you're in a position in the field, you are the guys who are producing, you know, all of the oil and gas. When you move into the office, you move into the corporate world, there are a lot more job cuts, if you like, as you grow. The pyramid gets smaller as you go higher. And that was tough to manage. You know, I think the biggest slump that we went through in 2014, I say it's the biggest slump, because I've had ones bigger than that, but I wasn't directly connected to it. It broke my heart when you work for a corporation that has 180,000 people and you got a layoff 90. You know, we tended to know them as numbers. And that was the biggest challenge we had, was we laid off a bunch of people. I mean, a whole lot of people, with no discrimination to, does his wife work in the oil industry, does she not? We were essentially putting people out, or families out of their livelihoods in 2014. And for me, that was the biggest challenge. But what I learned from all of that was pretty straightforward. Is you work hard, you do well, you're not on that list, is what I found out. And you know, there was a reason why some of us ended up having a job. You know, corporations and companies will manage their key performers for the longest time, if you like, but then there's only one slump and you realize, I should have done better. So my only advice to learning from these challenges is manage the volatility in the market. Understand when it's coming. Upskill yourself. Don't sit back and hope that your employer is going to help you upskill. Absolutely not. Upskill yourself. Push the employer to ask for training. There is no harm in asking for training. The answer is yes or no. And my advice to young people and people who are coming to the study for the first time, or in the oil and gas for the first time, It's very simple. When you get hired, do your best. If you don't know, ask. If you have to upskill, upskill. But don't be the laggards within the organization where you find that your coworker is doing better than you because he's upskilled and he's got the education and he's got the diploma that he decided to take. Take him. Quite a lot of this in Canada comes at a very low price and is almost free in most cases. We do training today where the federal government and local government are actually subsidizing training. So I don't have to spend my money to train you guys. If you ask for training, we will put on the training and the government pays for that training. So use it, upskill, keep yourself up, keep your eye on the market, understand where it's going, know what you need to do to get to that, through that tough period of volatility.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this question, and I have to say I haven't really had, any major challenges, albeit I've had a very short career, 11 years just in oil and gas. And obviously where there are stigmas of the industry, it's a very male dominated industry, but I have not had any issues. I have never felt that I've been discriminated against, and I hope that speaks to the evolution of the industry, because I know that's certainly not the case in the experience for everybody. And I know, like for me, I lived in camp. I did a rotational job working 7 days on and 7 days off, and I know that can be a challenge for people as well. But for me, I enjoyed it. I was in my 20s and I didn't have a family, so it was great. I got to travel, and I thought that was good for me. So the timing worked out really well for my life, but those are definitely things that I think people need to consider, that there are sacrifices that you probably need to take if you want to be successful. You might have to do a rotational job. You might have to move to a small remote city. I've lived with my husband's grandmother for a couple of years, and those are some of the things that you need to take into consideration, I guess. But as it relates, I haven't really come across any major challenges, but I know they're definitely out there for sure.
So I'm in human resources, so that's a challenge right there. Whether you're hiring people or helping people to do better at their jobs. I think one of the things that I found the most challenging working in this industry is its reputation. Right? Over the years, it has become where it was providing for families. It does sound kind of weird, the mic. Was providing for families and was doing its due diligence, and then it becomes now a dirty word, dirty oil, depending on who you're talking to, depending on which documentary you're watching, depending on which celebrity has decided to hit social media with their comments and concerns. So again, education is the key, right? There's so many different ways to produce energy, and oil and gas, fossil fuels is one of them, and it's about educating yourself. So I find that very disheartening, very, very challenging, because, like I said, it's provided for me and my family over the years, and I'm proud of working in the oil industry. I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish and what we've done. Now, across the globe, are the regulations and the safety and the environmental impact the same? Of course they're not, unfortunately, but it's not about painting a broad brush. And then, Ash mentioned about the downturns, the cycles, and we do have cycles in the oil industry, and you do have to prepare yourself for those cycles. If you had told me in 2019, in February of 2020, that we would have experienced one of the biggest downturns ever due to a pandemic, that oil prices was going to be a negative on the stock market at one point in time, there's no way I would have ever believed you that it would have impacted everybody across the globe like it did. And I think that is the worst case scenario. So I think, again, you always have to be aware and be responsible to yourself and to your family. And, every industry out there has its ebbs and flows. And unfortunately, oil and gas is not able to buffer from those, not protected from having, because again, everything is impacted from the global market. It's not just one thing that affects our industry. So being responsible, like Ash says, whether it's training, saving for a rainy day, whatever the case may be. So that's been, I think, the biggest challenge as well for me.
Sure, and I think as Albertans, we understand that quite well, right? In terms of the brunt of some of those conversations globally as well. Oh, you're from Alberta. Calgary, right? We hear that sometimes, and it can be really disheartening and it can be hard to navigate. But one thing I think I hear from the three of you especially is really around this concept of lifelong learning, right? Always wanting to explore, always wanting to upskill and be able to find that awareness and that education for yourself, to be able to move forward. So one of the things that I've heard from the three of you is really talking about the importance of networking, right? Getting to know people, getting that call, as you said, Susie. But if you're in a new country and all of your network is, in your home country or country of origin or the last place that you worked or whatever else, do you guys have any advice in terms of like where do you even start to network? How do you even start building that network so that one day you have people that are going to be able to call you, right? Like where does it start? How does that even happen?
Based on my personal experience of being in the recruitment side of the industry for a number of years, this is one, right? This type of opportunity where you're able to go meet with employers, gain some insight to different things, talk with people, talk to each other, right? If you know someone that's gotten an opportunity, look at different groups that are out there, that whether it's on Facebook or LinkedIn or something, where you can start to have some chats and talk to people that are in the same situation as you, but been able to maneuver through it. It is a who you know industry, right? Who knows you and who you know. It's about building bridges, and it really does foster that whole progression for yourself. So I think, again, if you talk to people, go to different events such as this, career fairs, if companies are putting out open houses, and it is a challenge. It is really a challenge. We're always talking about this. Right? There's not one silver bullet that actually solves the networking issue or addresses it. So it is about making yourself available and researching and getting in and talking to people and reaching out to individuals as well. The worst thing that happens is that person doesn't respond to you, right? So I've had some people actually come to me here that reached out to me on LinkedIn, and I remember, and I connected with them. Right? So I think that's there's a few different avenues, and you just have to be resourceful and talk to each other and find out.
I would definitely echo that. Events like this is probably a great place for you to start, but I think living in Calgary, just because you don't know someone in the industry, you don't know where to start, I can guarantee you, the person working behind the till at the gas station knows someone. Someone that you saw on the street, they know someone. So just not being afraid to sort of put yourself out there and ask, because I'm fairly certain that almost everyone knows someone who works in oil, gas, or the energy sector in some capacity. And like I said before, those people are probably willing to talk to you. They've been there before. And I guess one of the pieces of advice I would just say, just don't be shy about not having experience. All the skills that you have today are transferable to oil and gas in many different ways, and people are definitely open to having new people and new ideas in the energy sector.
Yeah, no, I think I'll answer this question in two parts, right? So networking is you and me. If you are shy, it's you. It's you guys that need to, there are lots of people who are introverts who don't know how to network. They use LinkedIn, they'll ask for a link and then they don't get back. So my take is, if you have that problem of not being able to go up to a person, only think of what I'm saying now is when you ask that person, all you're going to get is a yes or no answer. If you say to a person, I want to meet you, or I want to talk to you, if he says no, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but you'll get an answer. You have to ask. If you're not going to ask, that kills the network right there. So get on LinkedIn, post if you have to post, ask a question, figure out who works for who, who's connected to who, and say, hey, this guy has an answer to me, would you mind taking 2 minutes of your time to talk to me? That's one part. We find a lot of people within, the engineering organization especially, they're too introverted to actually go. Their networking is within an engineering circle. They don't want to get out and talk to the ESG guys or talk to different networks. So that's on you. On our side, I think, forums like this are fantastic. In Calgary, St. the universities, if you're studying or if you're just coming to upskill yourself, those are places where you can actually get super networks done on some of these forums. I was on one of them just before Christmas, where we had a whole bunch of newcomers into this ESG space. So look, I think use your universities, use your LinkedIn, use your Facebook, keep it clean. But what I say to you is, when you meet people, don't hesitate to make contact with them. The reason we are here is to make contact. The reason that I brought people with me from my organization is to make contact. The reason Kim and these guys in the previous panel were talking about come see us at the back is there's an opportunity to network. And it's not just this opportunity. Go figure out who is who within this company and try and make, look, like I said, it's you who wants to make contact, and if we are being, snobbish and not replying back, find out who we work with and try and make sign. Some people don't have time to answer your LinkedIn, but I tell you, 9 out of 10 times when I get a LinkedIn post, I pass it down. So keep going with that. Keep attending, state forums and forums like this. You will get somewhere with networking for sure.
Thank you. And I know that one thing, at the Center for Newcomers we always talk about is similar to what you're saying, is that, a networking opportunity is any opportunity you have to talk to people, right? So you could be in any space in your life. Like you could be watching your kids, play their soccer game, and chatting with all of the other parents and guardians around is part of networking, right? Going to your local place of worship can be networking, right? So just really being able to put yourself out there is really important, to let people know what it is that you're looking for and who you're looking to connect with is so important in that. So we are down to the last question. I know we're extremely riveting and you want us to talk all day long, but unfortunately we're not able to. So my last question to each of you is, what advice would you give to those looking to get their first job and or their foot into the door into the oil and gas sector, to this sector?
Yeah, I'll go first here. So I know this has been said throughout the entire forum here, and I cannot emphasize enough that networking is so important. Do not underestimate the value of the relationships that you build. They're going to follow you through your career. The industry is very, very, very small. You might think it's very daunting. Oh, oil and gas, it's huge. It is not. You're going to find that once you get your foot in the door, you're going to run into the same people time and time again. So that's just very important. And I guess I would say, be open to learning. Be open to challenging the status quo. What you know about oil and gas and what other people tell you. And I mean, the industry, they want new ideas, they want innovation, and you can definitely add value to the industry. So that's what I would say.
I kind of touched on this in the last panel. Honestly, it's do your research, understand what you're looking for, and then again coming with questions and engagement, right? So it's not just a matter of you applying for an opportunity or talking to someone to see if they have an opportunity, but do your research, understand what that company does. And again, when you come to the table and I'm going to have a conversation with you and you actually understand what my company does, or you have questions to get a better understanding of what we do, that just tells me that you have an interest in it, right? So it's not just, again, a box that's being checked. That helps. And then the attitude, right? If you're willing to learn, if you're willing to put in the effort, and again, you're willing to learn and ask questions, that's huge, right? If you're going to come in and sit and wait to be told what to do, or sit and just assume that you know what to do, again, that won't go well. If you want to step and one foot into the door, you have to be humble and you have to be, again, educated so that it's a two-way conversation. So that's probably the best thing I could say.
Yeah, I think they've pretty much covered most of it. But the only thing I'd say is there's two things for newcomers to Canada. Education is education. Whether you're educated in India, like I did, or you get educated in Canada, it's the same education. When you do engineering, it's engineering. It's no different mechanical engineering from Canada to whether you do it in the UK or whether you do it in India. The only difference is you've got to come here and register yourself as an engineer, which is easy to do. So what I say to you guys is, do not downskill yourself because you're in a new country. I heard this in the previous panel, people talking about, well, maybe I should start here and grow myself. No, you're educated. You have experience. Use that experience, talk to your employer, talk to your recruiters. Make sure that you make them understand who you are and what your experience is and what your education is. Education is absolutely the same wherever you are in the world. And I'd say this again, guys, do not downgrade yourself. when you come to take an engineering job, tell us what you do in engineering. We will figure out a way to take you and make you a PM within the regulations of Canada, but you're an engineer. So do not downscale yourself. I heard this in the previous panel. A couple of guys were, well, we'll start here and we'll grow up. Look, you can start to make a livelihood. Go drive a car, you do whatever else you need to do. But that doesn't make a guy who drives a car a less engineer than the engineer he is. And so that's the only advice I can give you is be confident and firm when you talk to your recruiter on who you are with experience, what you've experienced, and what you are in your education space. Do not downgrade yourself. Okay?
Well, thank you for that. Thank you, all three of you, for this wonderful panel. I know at the Center for Newcomers we do a lot of work on credential recognition, and I think that is an extremely important piece to end on, right? Is that as we work as settlement agencies to work with governments and regulators to ensure that credentials are recognized, it's really great to hear from employers and people in the industry that they're also working towards that as well, and also want you to be recognized for the credentials that you have. So that's really makes me happy on a Friday afternoon to go into our weekend with. So thank you so very much. And if any of you have questions, we are going to be doing the networking event, so you can connect with anyone, including myself, to chat if there's anything you'd like to ask after that. So back to you, Pat.
Great.